with no mustache takes out an alligator with an oar. That's the kind of movie I'm looking for. Eugene.
And we're just casually just like, yeah, so that's probably the best way to go, light someone on fire with gasoline.
Alex.
It would not be an original lineup if I didn't have fucking technical difficulty.
Johnny O.
Now, it's not an Amityville, or wherever it's Amityville.
And Aaron.
They got manure to work with and nothing grew from it.
News, trailers, trivia, special guests, and more.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Live show every Wednesday, 7 p.m. Central at youtube.com/weekinhorror.
Welcome to prime time, bitch!
And wherever you listen to podcasts.
One by one, we will take you.
Week in Horror. Stay scared.
Welcome, horror fans. It's Wednesday, 7 p.m. Central Time. That means it's time for another episode of the Weekend Horror Podcast. The only podcast published in a dimension not of sight and sound, but of mind. And if you, dear horror fanatic, are listening to us at the top of the week, remember, we do it live every Wednesday here on YouTube, and you can join us here in the live chat. This week, we're covering select horror films released December 4th through December 10th. Thank you all so much for joining us. I'm Aaron, and with me tonight are Johnny and JL.
Good evening,
Say hey,
everyone.
fat guys.
That's my line, fucker.
Preemptive strike, baby.
I love the name, by the way. Motherfucker, don't you dare take it off when I'm talking about this lady's name.
Oh, sorry, my bad.
Jesus Christ. It's a great name.
It is a great name.
All the time. I really appreciate it. Anyway, that's all I want to say. It's been a fuckle of a week, and I need to let loose a little bit. So I'm going to be extra salty today.
Oh, fantastic! That's always good. It's salty Johnny is the best Johnny. It's like Sir Stroming without the smell.
Oh, or
is there another Johnny? I have not met non-salty Johnny yet. I have not seen low sodium Johnny, and I call bullshit.
I concur.
Now with lower sodium, it's not the same.
Don't start, DeNova, you fucker.
All right. Well, welcome everybody. This is gonna be awesome. We have some strong opinions about the films that we watched this week, and
I object.
You object to what?
I didn't watch any films.
Oh, some of the movies, the flicky shows we watched this week.
All the picture shows with you youngsters. All the moving pictures.
Oh, I love that. I love that term. Flick. I've never seen me a flick show. And judging by what we watched, we still haven't. So, first and foremost, let's throw up the banner and thank our amazing patrons, all those individuals down there whose names are listed to help us to make this show possible. We love all y'all. Thank y'all so much. And let's say hi to whoever's in the chat tonight. Who do we have? Travis Brown is here. Good to see you, buds. It's Good Evening Horror Fiends. Raven Darkstar as well. Good to see you. There's Aaron keeping it down there in the live chat. And I see...
Dead people?
Clairview is here. Good to see you, Claire. Thanks so much for being here. Appreciate that. Nemo813 is in the house. Casey Cooper as well. And Sally Skellington, who says hi. Good to see both of y'all. And then I see Sarcasm is here. Says, good evening, everybody. Good to see you, Sarcasm. Denova28 says, hola, mi nerdmigos. Hola to you, sir. We have some good stuff to talk about tonight. And, I want to say, for the patrons that are eligible to join us on our After Darks for the horror trivia night.
Yeah.
When our patrons take us on in horror trivia to win stuff to win swag out of the Week in Horror store. This last one was amazing.
You mean beat Travis?
Oh, they tried to beat Travis, yeah. Because Travis was there, DeNova was there, Joshua Lee was there, and they were taking on Johnny and Aaron, and I was hosting the whole thing. Which is why I didn't win, because I wasn't playing. And then, of course, but everybody, it was an awesome showing. Everybody, I've never seen everybody get on the board with multiple points in one fell swoop. Usually, it kind of gets dominated by either someone here on the crew or usually by Travis Brown. Or we have a couple others that are really, really good, but people held their own. It was a good competitive run. So it just goes to show, by listening to the show, you do get better at this.
I do like how Travis conceded the point after
after he won, after his win.
After the win, like, yeah, Johnny was correct on that one. I'm just gonna put that out there. But I'm still taking the win.
See, Angel Rivera says happy holidays.
I'm gonna Sharia law Travis and cut off his right hand if he doesn't stop jumping the gun on that damn buzzer.
Angel Rivera says happy holidays, Week in Horror, and everybody in chat. Happy holidays, Angel Rivera. Thanks for being here. Leanne Richards here says Week in Horror live Wednesday 7 p.m. Central. Thank you so much, Leanne. We appreciate that shout. NANA's here, one of our longtime patrons. Good to see you, NANA. Cindy Johnson's here. Says, good evening, JL. Still sick. I'm sorry you're feeling poorly. Hope you feel better very soon. But thank you for popping in and saying hi, Cindy. If you need to go lay down and rest, totally understandable. Hope you feel better quick. Snow White says, first time here. Always happy to have a Disney princess in the chat, ready to be corrupted. Thank you so much. We appreciate that.
So hang on a second.
Come on, Snow White, Libro's red.
Hang on a second. Them Disney princesses are plenty corrupt, okay?
They get a pass. They get an absolute pass.
They are plenty corrupt.
He's gonna fuck that beast, and you know it.
we got little people prawn. Sorry, little people prawn with Snow White. Okay, shacking up with 7 dudes, not shacking up with 7 dudes. You know what I'm saying?
This is getting out of hand. I don't even know how to comment.
I don't know what to say.
Sally Skeleton says, yay, it's horror time. And Casey Cooper says, hello, Johnny O, JL, and Aaron. Good to see you. Thanks so much, Bud. And Lee Everett said, it was so hard waiting for y'all to come back. Yeah, I know. It's once a week. Sometimes once a week is just not enough. I know it's enough for these guys sometimes, giving what I have them watch.
Movies, yeah.
But it's never enough.
I don't know why I'm still your friend.
Sir Captain says, I challenge everyone to find an actual horror film in this week's lineup.
I do not take the challenge.
Although I will say two of them are obviously horror films. The other two, there is some discussion there, but that's a part of the discussion that we're going to get into tonight. So I'm looking forward to that. Okay. Let's see. Christo, Kiriam is here. Kiriam is here. Says hello, Johnny L, JL, Johnny O, and Aaron and all. Good to see you, Christo.
Hello.
Thanks so much for being here. And Claire V says, when is Johnny O low sodium? Never. The answer is never.
Not on this show, but it does happen, right? So here's the beauty part. Like, okay, everybody who watches my content sees
like 5 seconds after sex and when he's asleep.
Something like that, yeah. Now, everybody who watches the plot hole, they get the more level-headed side. I'm not as salty, especially in the creative content. So when I come over to the Week in Horror, I get to fucking let loose. I get to be, I get to play a character, right? Because all of us really, we're just playing. Like Aaron really isn't this dickish, okay? He's a really cool, fun-loving guy. He's never this stiff and rigid and dickish, right? JL isn't this smart. Okay?
You know, this intellectual and deep thinking in reality.
We're all just playing characters, okay? So it's fun. I'm a caricature of myself. JL's a caricature of a smart person, and Aaron is a caricature of a real dick. I mean, it's all there is to it.
I need more on drugs.
Sir Cat says he is a low salt Johnny.
There we go.
That's good. Angel Rivera says, well, to see you back, I'm afraid what I will see if I look at your back, Aaron Reese.
Yeah.
What are the Navy soldiers called?
Sailors?
You mean sailors?
When they're out to sea?
No, I'm not saying that word.
Sailors?
Not unless you tell the submarine joke. Long, hard, full seaman. Submarine, you dirty bastard.
Tony Regime is here. Says, hello, Week in Horror. Good to see you, Tony Regime. Jinju's in the house. Good to see you, Jinju. And I see, who else do we have here? Just trying to get back to saying hi to people because this conversation is getting weird. Snow White says, still looking for my prince. He'll be along, hopefully, one day.
I'm nobody's prince.
Oh, Raven Darkstar says, Week in Horror telling you to watch The Dark. I have seen, I've started that series. I have not finished it yet, but I have seen, I am aware of it on YouTube, and I have started it. There are other things to watch as well. So there's things that take priority, but I will eventually get through that. I absolutely will. I promise that.
Is it The Dark or Dark?
The Dark, which is about the cave.
Okay, it's different one.
I don't want to spoil too much because it's fairly recent.
I thought it was just dark. I know what you're talking about. I've seen season 1. I need to watch season 2.
Yeah. And then of course there's another one about a zombie girl who encounters a blind boy, an abused blind boy in the woods, which I think is also called. It's either called I think it's called In the Dark, or maybe just The Dark as well. But I've seen that movie, and of course I'm watching the series as well. So let me see. Someone did say. Travis Brown says, though Snow White did have a horror film. She absolutely did.
Well, if you look at all those Brothers Grimm stories, they were all not. They were all horror. Cinderella, that Jesus Christ, like people don't realize is that those stepsisters were not just trying to like shove their foot into that glass slipper. They were mutilating their feet to make it fit. They were chopping them shits up. That shit is fucking dark.
So let's see, Leah Richard.
Kiss that brought Snow White back to life, or at least not on the kiss on the lip.
So have you seen this? Have you seen have the idea that Snow White, even in the Disney version, she doesn't come back to life? Like it's a retelling of a Hamlet style story. Because at the end, when they're riding off into the sunset into the castle, it's a castle in the sky, and they're going up to the castle in the sky.
Oh, it's like Grease.
Yeah, except before Grease.
Except before Grease. Okay, yeah. Yeah, she was dead.
He also knows she came back brain damaged like a zombie. Like the tetrodotoxin, low oxygen.
Leah Richard says, question, how do you guys choose the next Wednesday's film? So
what happens is JL does a whole lot of cocaine. There's a movie coming out called The Cocaine Bear. It's about JL. It's about this guy right here. It's his story.
Yes, Cocaine Bear.
And he gets a long list of horror movies, and he goes right to the shittiest 4 from that week, and he says, this one sucks. Fuck you, Johnny. This one sucks. Fuck you, Aaron. Eugene's here. We'll give him an okay one. And Alex is here. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
So to answer that question, Leanne, I have, from the very beginning of this show, over 4 years ago, I created something on my computer that I call the horror film database. And the horror film database has essentially a listing for every single day of the year. And so those listings are every single movie, every horror film that is released on that day of the year. I've got 4 to 5 entries for every single day. And then, of course, those days also include the birthdays and the in memoriams for icons in the genre who have passed, who should be remembered, or to wish them happy birthdays. So throughout that's how I create the Daily Splatter. So the Daily Splatter is a horror film recommendation every single day of the year, and every day is a new horror film. It's been going on since I started this, or since we formed this podcast. And that was a way of kind of marketing the whole thing. And so I indicate on the database what movies we've talked about. And so I try to find I try to select ones from the week that are available that we haven't touched on yet, that give us that provide something interesting to talk about, whether it's about the industry, what was going on in society at the time, or it's a particular director or a writer that we would like to spotlight. So I try to select them, and because I do that, for some reason sometimes they kind of thematically converge. So we kind of sometimes run into like this almost thematic week in horror, but that's not intentional. It doesn't happen all the time, but it does happen sometimes. But yeah, it's just essentially what do we have available and what is interesting to talk about. So
all I got from that was blah, blah, blah. I'm a giant fucking nerd who has way too much time on my hands to make a database of movies.
You should see the size of this fucking thing, man. It is enormous, dude. It's like, I don't know how many pages it is.
I've heard that before. Why then, too?
But I have no idea how many pages long it is because I have it in a text file. But it's, like I said, it's 4 to 5, sometimes 6 or 7. Sometimes some days have way more releases than, like I know, like October 1st has like 15 releases on it. So, but some days, typically I try to go like 4 to 5 each one, so I could shoot for like the 5-year mark for Week in Horror. And then, of course, given how many we have, it's just, it just gets insane. So, but eventually that means that eventually the show's going to wind down to maybe we'll start doing like 3, or maybe we'll do
5.
We started out doing 5 apiece, yeah.
Fuck.
And we've been at 4 for the longest time. We may end up dropping down to 3. It's hard to say, but that's just how the show evolves because there's only so many movies you can talk about. We've already addressed over these years. I think we're coming up on like almost 650 films, maybe more.
Okay, so we've probably watched about 15, 16 good ones in that 650. So
We have found good movies. Some that
I kid. There are some really good movies in this list.
Speak for yourself. I missed the first
Not
few
this-
seasons. I ain't seen three.
Denova28 says Johnny gets to be dead sea salty. And Sarkaz says, I have seen Bridge the Divide. If JL isn't smart, he deserves an Oscar. Thank you, Sarcasm.
Look, that's just good planning. Okay, that's all it is. Good
He gets
research.
to write the script, so he's working with his strengths.
All right, let's see what else we got here. Dib Dib is in the house. Good to see you. Dib Dibs is on lurk mode, but good to see you, Dib Dib. Thanks for popping in. Mr. Malort, all the way from Chicago, says Let the Right One In series is fantastic. I have yet to watch it. I haven't had the time, but I do like the cast, so I will be looking into that. I'm a big fan of the original though, and the American remake did not impress me, so I was a little standoffish.
I never do.
Tony Regime says, JL looks at the worst films and decides based on which one of the turds he thinks will actually take a shine.
That's true. That's true.
That may go into it. I don't know.
That's true.
Oh, Leanne says, wow, what a ton of work. Thank you for doing all that. My pleasure. It's, and all in the,
Risk.
I guess it's all part of the effort trying to bring you the best and most interesting horror genre content that we can. I appreciate that.
Fuck out. Did you say the best?
Well, the best meaning to keep it fresh, keep it original, keep the conversations interesting.
That's why you sound smart, because you just reinvent words in your mind and say
I'm gonna eat your whole head.
Okay.
Joshua Lee is here. Says, just remember us, the little people. I will never forget the people that helped to make us a success. I will never forget them. So thank you so much, Joshua Lee. I appreciate that. And he says, I think someone needs to check JL's basement. If I had one, you could.
Oh yeah, you do live in Basement Town, like the beginning of Basement Town.
Oh, going up north?
Yeah.
That's. I think it's true. Yeah, it's possible. Yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
And make sure I didn't miss anybody. Raven Dark Star, yeah, we're good to go. And I don't think I miss anyone. Yep, I think I am solid. Okay, fantastic. All right. So, before we dive in tonight,
Nope.
really just going to cut me off right there. Before we dive in tonight, I've been dying to fucking talk about these, at least get some opinions on them from my fellow crewmates who have, but first and foremost,
Fucking
the new Wednesday series. Well, I know Aaron has. Aaron's reliable. So,
You're really acting at this point. Reliable.
Oh, what happened? We lost JL. Oh shit.
all right. So
Back. Okay, good. The show can't continue.
So, the new Wednesday series. I started watching it, and I caught the first episode. It hooked me. I'm still not 100% on the Jenna Ortega train, but I'm way more on it than I was before. So, if people are not familiar with Jenna Ortega, she was a child actress, came up on Disney, and has really struck out and entered the horror genre as a kind of like as a real name, as a real contender. She was in Scream 5.
Out with Scream 5, or was Scream 5 just a shitty role for her? I think
that was the point. I think Scream 5 was a shitty role.
Yeah,
that's my conclusion.
Scream 5 was just a shitty movie, but
right. Well, the writing wasn't great, so it's not like she had the opportunity to really flex herself as an actress.
Yeah, right.
And then she's going to be in Scream 6. But the whole big thing was, I've seen her performance in X, and I thought she was really good. I saw her performance in Studio 666, and I thought she was quite good in that one. And so she is a strong actress. But I hadn't really seen anything, and people are going on like Jenna Ortega. But then Wednesday came around. I caught the first episode. It was enough to catch me. Even though the selling me on the Catherine Zeta-Jones as Morticia, that was kind of hard. But I finished the rest of the series. Damn, that was really fucking good, in my opinion. But I'm passing it to you because
there's a little bit. I think the ending to it, there were some very predictable elements. But overall, it was good, great up until then. I'll pick those problems 5 years from now when we're allowed to talk about this. But yeah, like her Jenna Ortega, I really was impressed with her in The Babysitter 2, Killer Queen. That was the first thing I remember seeing her in. Everything else, she kind of was under the radar, but like she did so well in that if they killed the protagonist and just kept going with her, I'd been like, I'll watch the next one. That's fine. But yeah, she did a really good job. They translate it really well. They didn't go. I was really worried we were going to get a photocopy of the new Sabrina because they veered really close in some of it, but they didn't get too close to that. They didn't go to, teeny bopper, shiny vampire route. So it was, yeah, it was entertaining. It was interesting. I liked it.
I watched every single episode. No, I didn't. I didn't watch a single one. I'm sorry. I have like real work to do, guys. I can't watch all these shitty fucking movies for this podcast. And
It's not shitty.
no, I said no. I said shitty
I ain't
movies.
saying
Oh, okay.
I have no idea. I don't know because
Your
you
microphone
started getting.
Mom is cutting out.
Brown parent on
Is
this.
this better? Is this better for you? Do I need to put it all in the back of my throat so you can get the insides? No, I plan on watching it. It's just tough. It's tough, like because the kids are like, I don't want to watch that. It looks stupid. So they want to watch like shit they want to watch, like fucking Voltron, Ninja Turtles. I'm like, well, I can't say no to that. It's fucking.
Well,
You will not watch Voltron.
Well, I thought it was quite good. It took a moment to sell me on the Catherine Zeta-Jones as Morticia Adams. I thought it was like,
I think
that's kind
20
of
years
odd.
ago it would have been an easier sell.
Yeah, and then of course, but Louis Guzman I thought was fantastic. That was a perfect sell. That was perfect. Gomez. Everyone else solid. I love Gwendolyn Christie in her role. Christina Ricci being in it. The role that she played was solid. I'm only I was only kind of put off by the casting of Fester, and I've totally spaced on his name. This is the guy from Portlandia.
Fred Armisen.
Fred Armisen.
Yeah.
Sorry, thank you. So I didn't think that was solid casting. I think they could have cast that better. But I mean, it was serviceable to the plot, so it's pretty much all it was.
Yeah.
Is that the extended family was used as plot jeeps, so.
I was gonna say I think he was closer to the original Fester though from the show, and then I'd have to
from
look
the
up more of the
cartoon
comics
series, yeah.
to know how close. Yeah.
Because I think we're all pretty much in love with Christopher Lloyd's depiction of Fester, which I adore. I adore Christopher Lloyd's depiction of the character.
Yeah.
So, but nonetheless, it's a very, very solid show. I thought it went really well. I was kind of fearing kind of a Sabrina the Teenage Witch kind of direction where they would lean really, really hard into it for edginess and whatnot, but they didn't. And I thought it's got a lot of merit and a lot of good stuff, and it definitely is a horror show because it doesn't shy away from some of the more, the violence and the grittiness. So I really dug it, and I think if you're definitely an Addams Family fan, then you'll definitely want to check it out. Jenna Ortega does a magnificent job. She sells it very, very well, and it's the Addams Family. So there's going to be a level of kind of kitsch and kind of campiness that's going to just be inherent with the IP. It's what you come to expect. But it's not so much as to kind of water it down. So I think it was really, really well done. Especially being directed by Tim Burton.
And one thing to keep in mind too is that the original comics, like the guy that created them, Charles Adams, I think it was, he was not happy with how much they toned him down for the show, which they were going to have to in that era. But they could be pretty like morbid, horrific people in the original comics, and you see a lot more of that creep into this than you even did the 90s show where they make fun of just like completely terrible things that they would do to people.
Yeah.
So
Raven Darkstar says the Morticia dress did not flatter Catherine Zeta-Jones. And I would actually agree with that. It's one of the reasons why it was kind of a hard sell, is that Catherine Zeta-Jones at her, not to say that she's too old or anything like this, but at her age, her features don't have the kind of angular depiction that Morticia is supposed to have. So if you look at the original comics and how they were depicted in kind of cartoon format, then Angelica, that's why Angelica Houston was cast when they did the original movies with Raul Julia. And so that, I think, that's the perfect film depiction of Morticia. Catherine Zeta-Jones was close to there, but not so much, but I mean, it was serviceable. It worked. It took me a minute to kind of like, yeah, I could see it. So, went with it. Nothing's ever going to be 100% perfect. So the only thing I really stumbled on was just the casting of Fred Armisen as Fester. I thought that was kind of just cheap, and I think could have been a little bit better. But hey, it serviced the plot, and he was only in there for an episode, so we're good to go. And Tony Regime says the original TV Morticia is my favorite. Hell yeah. Good stuff, good stuff. And so I also wanted to check and see, because Eugene hadn't watched it and other people had seen it, but have you managed to make your way through Cabinet of Curiosities yet?
Yes, I have. And it's real mixed. It's really mixed bag for me. I think everything was good, but in there it ranged from, good all the way up to there were a couple that were amazing. Like the viewing. If you watch this series, if you haven't watched it yet or you haven't got too far in it, save the viewing for the final episode, because while the current one, I think it's called The Murmuring or something like that, it's good. The viewing blew my fucking mind, even though like a small percentage of it qualifies as horror. Just everything about the visual presentation, the dialogue.
Panos Cosmatos
feel of it was amazing.
Panos Cosmatos knows how to set a scene. He absolutely does. And not to mention the characters that they have in the moment, because I think if I remember correctly, that was Peter Weller and Andre, and Eric Andre was in that scene, giving an oddly dramatic performance for what we normally see him as, which I was kind of like, this is like, did we have range and depth here? Could we a way to go from the guy who gave us, let me in, for that meme. I loved that sequence. I thought it was fantastic. I'm a big fan of Panos Cosmatos ever since, Beyond the Black Rainbow, and of course Mandy. So I saw the influences there, and he's got this beautiful surrealistic psychedelic 70s, early 80s inspiration going with everything he does in color, and this very Kubrickian color palette that he works with in order to convey certain things about the scenes, and not to mention how the characters that he's created deliver their lines and interact with one another is always brilliant. So everything is always like this kind of bordering between dream and nightmare, which I really, really dig. I just love his style. And of course, The Murmuring, the one that you're talking about, is the one with Andrew Lincoln from The Walking Dead, which is one of the things he did while he's been on hiatus. And then, of course, which I thought was a nice little, a cutesy little tale. I thought it was cute, But my absolute favorite is The Autopsy. That is, bar none, I think, the best of the entire series. The one with F. Murray Abraham. And the...
I think I know which one. Oh, yeah, now I'm remembering. Sorry.
Yeah, the body-jumping entity. Oh, yeah. That one blew me the fuck away.
Hey,
that
fucker!
One I really liked. It was kind of odd in War Bump. I didn't like the build up to as much, but once they sort of got to the point where they were doing, getting towards the crescendo of it, I think it improved a lot. What the fuck?
I brought it a guest. Everybody say hello to Jorg.
Hey, Jorg.
Hello, I'm live, I guess. I'm
Yes, Jorg, you are live. So, for everybody in the live chat, I introduce you to the man of many talents, Jorg, who we worked with on the and it's Jorg Victor Steinslaus.
Yes.
Who worked with us on Nail Gun, and this is the visionary. What is it it'd be easier to list what you don't do as opposed to what you do, Jorg, to be perfectly honest, because your talents cross the entire spectrum of just, behind the camera. So, I'll let you introduce yourself to the live chat.
Yeah, I'm a creative, and I love horror.
I mean,
that's
really all there is
right
to
the point.
All right, so thank you. That was Jorg. No.
I mean, I just think it kind of goes down just like everybody else, where we all kind of just love horror, and we just kind of pick up whatever we can in the, I guess, the pursuits of showcasing how much our affinity towards creation is, and I'm one of those individuals who's not short of that whole notion. And that's all I have to say about that.
All right.
That's all right.
Well,
I
this
gotta
is surprising. I wasn't expecting a guest, but this is very, very cool that Johnny was able to
told
bring.
you in the green room before you started the show.
Giving
Where
me
was I?
5 minutes advance notice that there's going to be someone on the show is not giving me advance notice. But it's
Well, like
awesome
saying,
that he
you
was
wouldn't
able.
tell us anything. It could have been your dick in a sock puppet for all we knew,
Whoa.
John.
Well, how do you know? How do you know it's not? How do you know it's not?
Because this one actually has creative ability.
That's not what your mom said.
Yeah, talented.
So, well, it's absolutely awesome to have you on the show, Jorg. This is fantastic for you to pop by. What we were currently talking about is the new Del Toro series, Cabinet of Curiosities, that's currently on Netflix, and just kind of like going over, like, because I've been chomping at the bit for someone to have watched, someone on the crew to have watched this as well, and kind of digress on what their favorites were or what they dug the most about it, other than it being produced by Del Toro. So,
Yeah.
So, but that was pretty much it. Just going over the new Wednesday series and the new Cabinet of Curiosities on Netflix, which I thought both of them were done quite well. Sir Cad says, "Where's Alex or Eugene to re-rail the show?" That's a very good point.
They're doing other things.
They are doing other things.
One is icing his balls, and the other one's working on a feature film.
That's right.
Yeah, Eugene is currently waist deep in it. He really, really is.
I'm not going to tell
All
you
right.
which one is icing and which one is working on the feature film. But you have to figure that out for yourself.
All right, well, definitely. Well, if you in the live chat, or if you're listening to this afterwards, if you have seen all of Wednesday, or if you've seen all of Cabinet of Curiosities, definitely let us know in the comments below, or of course in the side chat here if you're live. Since we're live, which ones you loved the most of the? Did you dig Wednesday? Did you not dig it? What didn't you like about it? And of course, if Cabinet of Curiosities, what your favorite entries were? If you loved all of them equally, or did you have a particular favorite, or which one you really, really didn't like? Because I know there were some that just didn't really resonate with people. But let us know. We'd love to hear what you think, or let us know at weekinhorror@gmail.com. All right, so because this is a horror podcast and we talk about horror movies, Johnny,
Do we talk about horror movies?
we do.
All right. So first up, we have the 2020 American horror film, What Lies Below. Besides a steaming pile of shit. Let's see that trailer.
Usually shroom looking like field.
Well, how was camp? Any good digs? Yeah, some.
What did she say?
Hey!
This is my boyfriend, John.
It's a pleasure to finally meet you. I hope you don't mind that I'm here. I know it's your lake house and I'm not trying to take away time with your mom.
It's important to me that you're okay with this. I'm happy for you guys. How did you guys meet?
I've been at the lake all year, studying a few species here.
You're kind of a weird dude.
I guess I am. But I mean, weird is cool, right?
Do you always lock the doors when you sleepwalk? I saw you walk into the lake towards this light.
I'm pretty dry.
I love him so much. He's not normal.
If we're gonna be a family, we have to learn how to forgive and forget. Right, Libs?
Get off of him!
Liberty!
Get out! Easier.
I just realized that this is the continuation or the origin story of the alien from Men in Black. What Lies Below is a 2020 American horror film written and directed by Braden R. Doomler and starring Emma Horvath, golly, I can't even
Mina Suvari.
Yeah, whatever. Right, who gives a shit, right? She's terrible in this. I'm sorry. She's awful in this. Trey Tucker. There's a couple other people in there, but nobody really cares because it's really about these three people. So we have a 16-year-old high school girl who gets asked by her mother if she found any good dicks while in fucking
No,
camp.
she did not.
Sure as shit what it sounded like.
She said digs because she went to archaeology camp.
Sounded like shit dicks.
It did sound like that.
There we go. Anyway, as she returns from dig hunting, obviously she sees her mother in bed with an alien.
Would we say alien?
Maybe a different type of life form.
Kind of, yeah, definitely not human species.
Not the species of human. This movie had potential, and I don't know if it was bad performances that ruined it for me, or if it was like the cheesy fucking crap and all that. I don't know. There's something about it that I did not like. I don't know. It had potential.
And good to see you, Gosh of Heckfire. Thanks for being here. Says, holy shit, I almost forgot about you, goofy kids. Howdy, y'all. Good to see you, Gosh. The big thing on this one, obviously, so you have the narrative here of the kind of like mutant hybrid human looking, or the species that can look like human is obviously not human, right? Because there's obviously multiple versions of them walking around doing their creepy fish thing. But when it comes down to it, the thing that took me out of it, and kind of going on what you said, is that the metaphor on this was way, way overhanded. Now, we're all familiar with the fact that horror films often have metaphors that correlate to something in reality with this. What lies below is not just about the fact that our monster, comes from the water, where it's, where it lies below the surface of the water, but also the inherent dramas and the shit that lie between us, that lie between people, the subtext that lies between people that gets in the way of us helping each other and understanding what each other is trying to say. Because the communication between the mom and the daughter trying to communicate what is obviously very, very wrong in the situation to the mom, in order to protect her, she can't do that because of the pre-existing bullshit between the dramas between the two of them. So the overhanded metaphor was just a little too much. That's something I think that's a problem with the writing in and of itself. Yes, yeah. I understand that you're trying to connect the two, but we kept getting slammed with the kind of manufactured drama between the 16-year-old girl who is. They tout up throughout the entire movie that she's very, very smart and she's scientifically inclined, and yet she's prone to these kind of like, wild conclusions that belie other aspects of her character, which is getting to the bottom of the mystery of who this new beau is in her mother's life. So there was weird characterization going on, inconsistency in characterization, and of course the overhanded metaphor itself, which just is there to manufacture drama in the space of, this mutant fish creature trying to save its own species by breeding with humans, by hybridizing with human beings. And so what could have been a solid horror film that dives into a kind of like weird kind of sci-fi horror film took a heavy turn into melodrama to sell it.
Yeah, we could have really got the Cronenberg.
We
could have gone that route with this film. It would have been much better. But yeah, they really wanted to focus more on, like you said, the drama. And I was like, come on, man.
And it may have been a consequence of the lack of budget, that if you just don't have the budget to do all the special effects that you want to do, to convey the kind of body horror aspects, you have to rely a little bit on CGI and stuff. That we could do a little bit of CGI, maybe some practical effects, just like, concoct stuff that we can just put there and then light it really, really weird, because lighting was a huge thing in this to create the eerie atmosphere, and of course, all the weird alien, the kind of alien like lights, like the orange lights coming out of the orange lights coming out of the lake, and then of course the weird lighting that was down there in the basement where he's keeping the experiments. So you have all of that, but then if you lack that money to do that, then you've got to go on the character development and fill the space with these characters running around one another.
That's the thing. Yeah, I can understand not having the money to do that, but then you look at Reanimator, and obviously they had the money to do it with Reanimator. They had the money to do it with plenty of other films. I think what it was just lack of solid direction. And I'm not trying to shit on the director or whatever, but it just seemed like it was a choice to be more melodrama than horror drama.
Well, I mean, if
Well,
maybe you
and I-
agree with me. And maybe Aaron can answer this well. I think that was probably rewrites. I smelled rewrites all over this. Those kind of like jerky gear shifts in the narrative tone that indicate where someone came in and dropped something that was originally there and then input something else and kind of like haphazardly slam them together. And so you get a kind of like jerky, like, oh, that was kind of weird, and then you get some. That's why the inconsistencies in character take place. Is because that from the rewrites. But that's just that's just a guess on my part.
I don't know if it's from rewrites as much as just from the original writing, because this is one that's written and directed by the same person. So, when you run into that, sadly, I think it's not necessarily a bad thing in and of itself, but it's a warning sign that you need to, or that you might be in for a bumpy ride, because there's nobody to keep the writer in check. There's no writer to challenge the director back as much as they might. And it's not even, I don't even know if it would be so much. There is overhand metaphor, but there's also, it's just used for way too many purposes, because you've got the ones you're talking about, the physical events, and then the psychology underlying it, and the events that happen beforehand. But you've also got like the lampreys and what he's doing being a direct correlation or what he's doing for his career as a person being a direct correlation for what he's doing as an alien or a nautical species, whichever it may be. And it's everywhere. And one problem I had is the pacing on this felt really damn weird. It usually you've got, the build up towards your climax, and you've got rises and falls at certain points, and they felt like they just landed in the wrong place every time. Probably the biggest one was the climax, which is a face off between him and her, and you really should have hit that strong and then jump straight into the denouement and end it, because anything after that with what they've built so far that takes too long, it just feels awkward and useless. But she has a climax, and then you feel the slowdown, and then all of a sudden it's back up with the ending, the surprise twist ending. I call it that in quotations, because it's really just they've gone for the unhappy ending to make it feel like it's poignant, like a lot of people do. But
Right.
It's a lot of ham-fisted techniques disguised by what are normally quality actors, good budget, money went into it, and the crew was doing their damn job. That was obvious. But it was just betrayed by the writing from the get-go, I think. I don't think they had a ready product to roll with.
That's entirely possible. There's definitely the sensation of like substituting for substance in that respect. That they had a really really solid premise, and then how to kind of fill the void to make this into a full feature. This would have been a fantastic short. If it had been like a 10 to 30 minute short, I thought it would have been really, because all of that could have been conveyed very very concisely without the overwhelming drama, and it could have even maintained. But it could have even maintained the idea that the whole concept is based upon like global warming and rising sea levels,
right,
and the obliteration of certain freshwater ecosystems because of the additional salinity. And so that's why this species has to do this, is utilize these techniques in order to save itself from what humans are doing to the planet, which is another thing. But that was extremely well delivered. The whole premise of the thing was well delivered. Everything else is tacked onto it is kind of like unnecessary, which like Aaron said, drags it down.
Yeah, that's where I was going to go with. It didn't necessarily need to be a short. It just needed to be shorter in substance. They needed to get rid of some of that extra added stuff. This probably could have been 15 to 20 minutes shorter and still been a full-length feature, and it would have been just a much better overall concise story and film. I feel like maybe it was rewrites, or maybe it was the fact that they didn't really, I don't know, maybe they just didn't say, hey, we need to trim some of this fat out, or we need to trim some of this stuff out, because it's just dragging the story down.
Agreed. Hey, Commander Darklight, good to see you, bud. Appreciate you being here. And Josh Willie says, "Go jail, polish away." There's not really much to polish on this one. I recognize that the film in itself had an interesting premise. I can see that on paper that this thing worked really, really well. But as far as from a writing perspective, I got to agree with Aaron on that one. There was a lot of missteps in the writing, and those missteps, which in my opinion were a result of just, there was other opinions going into it, or maybe there were rewrites done while the process was going on. Because sometimes you get to a point in the script where you simply don't have the budget to do what you want to do or what you plan to do, so you have to readjust on the fly, and that can result in those kind of jerky stop-starts that you see in the actual in the narrative, and of course inconsistencies in character, which was the big standout to me. The only thing that was consistent throughout the entire thing was the character of John, because he's not human. He's a single-minded, single-goaled, non-human entity.
Yeah.
So that his goal is easy. He can one-dimensional that. It says, I'm playing it being human, which is why it seems so creepy and off. Everyone else has to interact like a normal person, but those characterizations have to stay consistent.
Well, they could have used the inconsistent characterizations, especially with the type of story they're trying to tell about. Well, the whole ecosystem and whatnot. That narrative, they could have been like, no, humans are fucking unreliable pieces of shit. This is the reason why we're here. But this didn't seem that way. It seemed like, well, we're just going to be inconsistent for the sake of being inconsistent, or we're being inconsistent because we don't really know which way this character is supposed to go as a performer.
Well, one is a result of consequences, or a result of circumstances. The other one is a result of being a terrible writer. So I don't want to assume that he's a terrible writer. I want to assume that sometimes we run into problems that we have to think on the fly to solve our way out of. But you never know. He could be an awful writer. But I'll also agree with Aaron that the technical capacity of the film I thought was quite good. The lighting was solid. They shot it very, very well. There was nothing to be concerned with. There's no jerky camera nonsense. Everything was well framed. The sets, all the scenes were well constructed. There's always this kind of eerie sense of atmosphere and kind of offness to everything that's going on, whether it was, and it typically depicted in the conveyance of how light was moving in this, how light was utilized in the scene. I thought that was extremely well done. So a technically well done film that unfortunately suffered as a result of a lack of budget, or suffered as a result of just poor writing, just basic writing mistakes that you run into. But it happens sometimes. So, but unfortunately, I can't think it could have been solid, but it just kind of hits the mark. Not to mention, we've seen the story done 100 times before. It would have been nice to have somebody add something new to it, which did not happen.
No.
So,
well, if they had even gone, they would have been better off going with fewer of the direct family dynamics and looking at more of the supernatural. Because for the fact that I didn't like the way they tried to give it that shocking ending that wasn't shocking at all, because you kind of expect it. Visually, the way that set was developed and lit was great. I mean, they could have gone into more of what he is, more about his plan, how it's working. Is this show us, instead of trying to use his family dynamic just by itself, show us in relation to the horror. Why is she picking him over her? Because it's not just, it's obviously, at least I hope not, it's not just their family issues. There's more going on, because he and her are in bed in an instant, and they never talk about why when he walked out angry, suddenly they're back together,
and suddenly he's back in the house again. That was weird. Yeah
how why is she so into him beyond just the obvious? Does he have magic fish penis? Is he slowly brainwashing her that way? Tell us more about the horror, and
or it was like
the
a
actual family dynamics play out
Magic.
for that, instead of letting it stand alone.
Fish penis. I've heard many different things on this show. I even said many different things in this show, but magic fish penis.
I will say I get where you're coming from at the beginning, Johnny, when you said aliens, because of that the very final sequence that was extremely, the structure of what was going on there seemed very, I could see that. Maybe they were, but it was weird. If they're so alien, then why the connection to something so definitely terrestrial? Very, very strange. I honestly don't know. So, And I agree with that. There could have been a little bit more on the bad guy, a little more to kind of like elucidate on the bad guy instead of elucidating on manufactured drama to sell a metaphorical narrative, the metaphor of the narrative.
Well, see, but the beautiful part is that they developed the mystical bad guy a little bit more, they could have used that as a tool to drive the family drama aspect of it.
Definitely,
they could have like fucking knocked two fucking birds with the same stone, or magic fish penis.
It's real simple. She figures out that it's pheromones, and these things attract each other via pheromones. It's using pheromones to attract her mother, but for some reason, because of some childhood ailment or whatever, she is immune to that pheromone instance. In fact, and she recognizes it's because she's a scientifically minded individual who understands how to the methodology of figuring this stuff out. There you go. Problem solved.
Yeah, problem not solved. Problem not solved.
Well,
Problem not solved.
she sees a clone of him wandering around, or well, she sees another him, quote unquote, wandering around town looking very different. Is that him, or is that a clone? Do all of their agents look the same? Could they have taken over this town by applying magic fish penis in various places? Like the dispatcher gets on the phone with her, and the dispatcher's like, "Yeah, I'm banging that guy. I told him where you're at." Bing. You know.
There you go.
There was a lot of potential.
You can use that in the future. You can use that in the future. Magic fish penis.
Magic fish penis.
Whatever. If you have an idea, there you go.
That's just going to be the title of a movie.
But if you put it in German,
hey, product tie-in. You got fish cakes right there.
I mean, it's pretty close to English. It's magic fish schwanz.
See, that's perfect.
Magic fish fonts.
Yeah,
perfect. People are like, ooh, I'm gonna go check out the new German film. Like, yeah, you are. Also, they walk in and it's not the kind of film I want to see. Anyway, I think we've beaten this fish peen to death. So before we move on from the fish peen, I want to ask, what is the best family dynamic horror film? Let me know at weekinhorror@gmail.com, in the side chat, or down in the description below. Well, York, what you got?
Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
What's your favorite, or what do you think is the best family dynamic horror film?
Oh, the best family dynamic horror? That's be hard to say. One of my favorites that comes to mind as far as like depictions of family dynamics.
That's what I said.
Poltergeist is really good. The family dynamic horror. Oh, Tony Regime, Colorado Space. Fantastic. And Poltergeist again from Tony Regime, yeah. So I come back to the one as far as family dynamic horrors is it's out of kind of left field, but You're Next, because the family dynamic in You're Next was the driving point of the entire plot. How much this family has this veneer of functionality, and underneath it is absolutely fucking malignant and bonkers. How they all hate each other and have all these problems that ended up being as hilarious as they were destructive. And so I just dug that. And of course, Josh Lee brings up Texas Chainsaw Massacre, as well as Commander Darklight. Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The Saw is family. Yes,
That's
it is.
An interesting family dynamic, a different kind of family dynamic.
The family stays together.
Ooh, The Shining.
That's a good one.
Ah, definitely.
Conjuring 2 is it's up there for me. I don't know if it's my favorite, but I did like how that one played out.
Fucking A. Oh, Leanne Richer, best family dynamic. Psycho, Carrie, Poltergeist, Orphan. Intriguing.
I don't know about Orphan. I feel like I would have drop kicked that little bitch down the fucking hallway several times.
Oh, and Josh Lee brings up Hereditary.
Okay, you win.
Oh, The Hills Have Eyes. Is that family dynamic or about making family dynamics?
That's technically two family dynamics, like
That's true.
mutants versus normies.
Mutants versus normies. Ooh, Pet Cemetery. Angel Vera's got Pet Cemetery. Leanne Richard brings up Amityville Horror. And Sarcasm brings up House of a Thousand Corpses. Oh, and Rosemary's Baby from Nemo 813. Good son.
Rob Zombie any credit for anything. except for White Zombie. I give him credit for White Zombie. But even then, we're stretching it.
All right, so well, thank you all so much. Definitely let us know down in the comments below, or of course at weekinhorror@gmail.com what you think is the best family dynamic driven horror.
Stop rolling over my freaking question, jerk. I already asked it. Told him where to go.
You're not even on camera.
I'm saving the people. They get to see this fucking Viking over here.
Are you referring to me?
Jorg talks
I'm on
damn
camera.
much.
Oh wow, that's funny. I didn't even.
Oh
know.
no, Jorg, you've been on camera this entire time.
All
Wow.
time, yeah.
Wow.
I've been
I
staring at
could've
the side of your head for 15 minutes, man.
Okay. Oh, Commander Darklight at the
The
Omen.
Omen, yeah.
Absolutely.
The original,
Good-
not that
good
bullshit
stuff.
remake.
All right. So for our next film, released December 6th, 2019. We have the psychological horror, although there will be, I no doubt there'll be some disagreement on this, but there's a reason why I wanted to talk about this film, why it fills the horror void, is Knives and Skin. Let's take a look at this trailer.
Yeah, we have things to discuss.
A woman called for you last night. She was looking for her daughter, a friend of yours, Corey, Callie.
Carolyn. We aren't really friends anymore.
I put more of these up every day.
Well, honey, can you help me with this? I'm making a flyer for that missing girl. I saw the ones her mother's been putting up, and they're hideous.
You spelled her name wrong.
Oh. Well, I'm not gonna start over now. I worked really hard on this.
I thought your dad lost his job.
What do you do all day anyway?
Oh, honey, aren't you gonna eat?
Of course not.
If you need some extra money, you could probably sell my meds to your friends at school.
As most of you know, Carolyn Harper's been missing since Friday night.
If you know anything, let us know immediately.
For if the darkness and corruption leave a vestige of the thoughts that once I had, better by far that you should forget and smile than that you should remember and be sad.
Can you feel that?
I need to know there's a way out of this place.
311. How may I help you?
What do you think is going on here?
It will almost kill you, but you will not die from this.
You were warned.
I will rise. If only. Tell me where she is! To hold you down.
All right. Knives and Skin. Directed by Jennifer Reeder and written by Jennifer Reeder, starring Raven Whitley, Ty Olwin, and Marika Engelhart. The film centers around the disappearance of 16-year-old or 15-year-old Carolyn, and in the result of her disappearance, as the small town that she lives in begins to look for her, the surrounding populace, certain individuals that are connected to her life, begin to fall apart as the result of as they reflect upon her disappearance and what resulted in her disappearance, and then their own kind of like internal their own dynamics begin to crumble and fall apart, resulting in just everyone's lives blowing up, and until the inevitable conclusion as to what happened to Carolyn comes out. So the interesting thing on this one is absolutely yes. That I think there will be some that disagree that this would be classified as like a horror genre film. I classify it as horror. There are others that classify it as horror as well. And the reason I want to talk about this one is because this dives into something that we haven't got an opportunity to really address on the podcast before, and that is the horror of crumbling social dynamics and the horror of blinding egocentrism, because the whole concept of the film is about why terrible things happen to us or happen around us, and us recognizing that the reason these things happen is because we allow them to happen because we're too busy with our own shit, with the things that are preoccupying us. And then we recognize that in hindsight, and the question then becomes, can we address those things, dive into that kind of self-introspection, which is one of the scariest things that human beings could ever potentially do, is look at themselves honestly and change or not, or self-destruct, and who we bring with us along that journey of either improvement or self-destruction. The reason this was interesting to me is because this right here, this particular film, in its surreal psychological horror, in its depictions, I think is literally an examination of what we all deal with on a day-to-day basis. And I think that's the very heart of what we do here on this podcast, is examine how these types of films reflect us.
First and foremost, before I let everybody else say whatever it is they're going to say, the only thing we have to acknowledge that thriller is just mainstream horror. That's the only way that you get, that's the only way you remove that stigma of, well, it's a horror film that people are going to watch. Okay, we said this before many times, right?
Fallen, Silence of the
Lambs, those are labeled as thrillers, but we all know those are horror films.
Mm-hmm.
Because again,
it's a mystery horror subgenre.
Sure, but we can get Jodie Foster and Denzel Washington, Anthony Hopkins to do a thriller, but can we get them to do a horror film without throwing buckets and buckets of cash at them? Second, this movie was weird.
Very, very much so.
And when you have to put in there, like if I'm a studio executive and I look at a trailer and I see the words future cult classic, I'm like, fuck, I just wasted my money.
You can't call that shit. You can't call it ahead of time.
Yeah, don't tell me it's a future cult. He's just gonna fucking flop.
I hate to dig on this movie. I really do, because it's Jennifer Reeder's first experimental film, which I love experimental film, generally speaking. She is kind of a spearhead for female directors in horror, which is something we do need to see more of. I enjoy most of their work, even if I don't completely like it. Usually they venture into some interesting new areas, which is part of what horror is all about. But this really, it struck me as an awkward mix of David Lynch and John Waters, and it's John Waters primarily in the aesthetic and some of the awkwardness between people, how they interact, the fact that there's no cohesion in any conversation where there's a give and take on how you interact with each other so that you make each other more comfortable in the conversation. That's completely missing, and that was intentional, but I think poorly executed. But I think it is extraordinarily derivative of Lynch, to the point that Jennifer Reeder has taken and plucked all these elements and dropped them in there without understanding what they were used for, and without kind of giving them a new depth. Like this, the single best one, example I can think, surface example, is when the mom and the younger boy are in the car and she's kissing him, and you can assume to do more. There's this bright light coming from the car. It's a very Lynch-like visual, but it fails to take into account the reason that Lynch uses that, and I have more to say about that later, but it's not applicable at the moment, but fails to understand that Lynch doesn't just throw in lights and electricity for the hell of it. It represents where the supernatural and the normal cross, where paranormal and normal meet. So if a demon is executing something, and he does call them demons, even though they're not typical demons, where they're doing something or from this world, you'll see electricity, same thing. And it has, you can see how it's, and there are numerous works inspired by Twin Peaks. It's created its own advanced trope of the little town with big secrets. But you can see how this is almost directly taken from it. I mean, it's the young girl with the front who is pure and wonderful, and something terrible happens to her, and secrets start coming out about her, and it drags everybody else's secrets out. I mean, that's the textbook definition here. So I don't think she understood what she was doing, and it plays out in a way to me that feels like a high school play written by a high schooler, executed by high schoolers, because the dialogue is very stilted, very surface. It doesn't have a lot of depth, and it has spectacle just for spectacle, and that kind of kills me, because some of the actors in this did wonderful jobs.
Yeah, there is this odd kind of tone in the delivery of things, and that's because I think and I interpret it as a mark of solid writing, because, or not just solid writing, but also solid acting, because the writing conveys how individuals of this age, typically of this age, kind of convey themselves. We wouldn't say that oftentimes that it's typical that 15 and 16-year-olds who have all, existing in their own little universes can really convey their emotions to a depth that really make clear what they're feeling. So there's subtext running throughout the whole thing. Obviously, feelings are not being conveyed in the most efficient way possible. Just to expect that they're kids. And of course, the parents themselves don't convey themselves because the kids don't really have the capacities of understanding what the adults are feeling. And the adults don't talk to each other because they don't want to upset social dynamics. So everything is a veneer. Everything is fake. Everything is on the surface, and all the subtext runs in how they in their physicality, how everything comes out that way. From understanding the relationship of the sheriff's wife is having the affair, to what the one of the girls is doing to make money on the side. That all the dialogue is just kind of like it's just kind of on, like, right there in your face. It's very easy to understand, but everything else is running underneath because nobody is saying what they really feel. And I think one of the best moments that kind of conveyed what you're talking about there, that is, I thought it was a really interesting choice to utilize high energy pop songs delivered. They did this 4 times in the film, but is delivered in a melancholy a cappella tone, which I thought was interesting because from the Go-Go's, who else was in there? God, there's a bunch. The Go-Go's one really took me because it was so different. I was like, I know that song, but I wasn't sure. But utilizing that, conveying something peppy and high energy, but with this melancholy drama, kind of conveys what we're talking about. We know what it's supposed to be, but this in a sense is kind of what it actually is. I thought, and the scene where the girls are singing, and we know what the choir director, the mother of the missing girl, is going through, and her mental deterioration, and everyone is aware of it. The students are aware of it. She's aware of it. So we all know what's going on, but all the girls are constantly whispering to each other during practice. They're while they're singing, they'll lean over and whisper to each other stuff that has nothing to do with what is currently going on in front of them. That's the moment that kind of coalesced it for me. It was like that obliviousness, or that unwillingness to engage.
Though, right? I think it's more of if it doesn't directly affect me, I don't give a shit about it, which is something.
That lack of willingness to engage with what it is. We'd rather look away than look at, and that itself conveys.
Here's the thing: I'm not necessarily sure it's a conscious choice, right? So when we're talking about having fucking teenagers in the house all together, I don't think it's that they're unwilling. I think it's just their scale, their scope, their vision is just like fucking tunnel. They can only see what directly affects them in the now, and sometimes stuff that could directly affect them in the future. But that's a little shady, a little murky.
I agree, and that's the whole reason why what happens to Carolyn, which we won't spoil, so anybody who hasn't seen it, but what happens to her is a result of that short-sightedness, a result of that kind of teenage tunnel vision. But it's the responsibility of the parents to be able to temper that and engage with their teenagers to kind of educate them and help them to grow, which we see none of the parents in this do this because of their own shit. So we're always preoccupied with our own shit. Horrible stuff happens, but we never ever address it or look at it because we're either seemingly incapable of doing so or we don't want to, and it's a result of the own shit it doesn't change. Whether you're a kid in high school or you're a parent of multiple children or you're the sheriff himself of the town, we eschew our responsibilities because they're fucking hard, and because they're hard, that's the reason horrific shit happens under our noses. Which is why they spent all this time trying to find this girl, and everyone is crumbling and falling apart around them because of the tenuous grasp they have on civility and social, and the social structure is coming apart because they're beginning to realize it's their failure, the reason this happened. And so it shakes everybody, and then everything starts falling apart as everyone starts looking back at themselves as to why this took place and the roles that they potentially played in this. And then, of course, the kids themselves, how it reflects back on the girls and it reflects back on the guys as well. So, that's what's intriguing about it to me. And that's why I think because this is while I agree with what Aaron said about the kind of like the Lynchian aspects kind of being misused to convey because it's not what Lynch used them for, I get what the attempt was, and that attempt was to put a harsh reflection from albeit a feminist perspective, but it's just one facet of a very large diamond. That these are the problems in our society. These are the things that we deal with. These are what create real, true horror scenarios that we see each and every day that we've come to just accept. And so it was this quiet meditation, this almost melancholy meditation on, yeah, that's what's wrong. Can we deal with that? And do we lack the capability, or can we? And then that forces the viewer, the audience, to look in on themselves. And sometimes that is the scariest place to look, because the monsters are often us.
I will say that I think it missed the mark in execution, simply because at the end of the day, I really just didn't care. And it wasn't, I don't want to care to be introspective. I just didn't care to really dive into the story. It wasn't encapsulating. It just seemed like, what was that? Jawbreaker meets, some, what is it, Suburbia, or where the fuck it is. It just didn't seem, it wasn't engaging to me. It didn't I didn't care what happened to Carol Ann. Maybe she fucking ran away. Maybe she, shot herself in the woods and didn't want to fucking come home because she was embarrassed. I didn't care.
Well, to be fair, you weren't supposed to care that much about what happened to Carolyn. It was everybody else in town was the focus. And my chief issue with everything is, like you said, with the dialogue, is they're working on the surface. But so when he's standing on the roof and he does the whole, I see the highway from here and everything, was kind of the peak example of the problem with the dialogue and the way things play out, is when you deal with something like this, where you're going to do something experimental, be it Lynch or anybody else, you have to pull people in to your world before you shove them out into the weirdness. So the dialogue lacks a subtlety where it should be playing out surface as a very normal conversation, but then there is that oddness to it and the deeper meaning playing neatly beneath it. And I understand that she was trying to rip that up to the top, but when you do that, I can't think of anywhere where it's done properly, where it's done so extensively in a movie offhand, but when you put it up there, if you don't handle it properly, it's not going to work, because you're going to get, like Johnny said, he had trouble getting into it and caring, because it was so strange, so surreal, that you couldn't identify. And that's where I think the failing was. And then another point I want to bring up, this just is me bitching and being pissed off, is they portray this interaction between the mother and the kid as some nearly holy event, and then they portray the teacher
that really bugs you,
and the girl the way it should have. Like, that was horrific. What she did to that kid in the car, I don't care what the fuck he did, that should not have been some great event. I'm like, if you're going to tread new social ground, don't be the asshole. It's like, hey, but did you see the teacher? He's a fucking kid. Like, what she did is not okay, and she should go to jail after her daughter's funeral.
This is true.
By the way, her daughter dies, in case you didn't know. Good job there, Aaron.
That's straight up front. That's on the.
So
it will be on the box if we still have boxes.
I absolutely get that. I think it hit the nail on the head as far as, like, kind of Sartre as hell as other people. I get that, and that's what resonated with me. That ostensibly in true horror, like legitimate, the horrific things we deal with, because obviously slashers and ghosts and all these other various things are not things that we deal with in reality, and unless you're talking about like the metaphorical sense, but that which often makes mainstream horror, makes the most common and most fan-worthy horror, is not the typical things that we deal with on the everyday. What we deal with is the kind of Sartre-esque hell is other people, the idea that we are the monsters of our own stories and we are the monsters of other people's stories as well. And how we reconcile that without, losing any kind of perspective. And it's extraordinarily difficult. But that brings me up to the question I want to ask the audience. Given that Knives and Skin, I think, dives very, very well into the kind of true horror dynamic, legitimate humanistic horror, the things that we deal with, the reflections of society. What is true horror for you? What are your thoughts on this? I'd love to hear what people think, what rings for them as true identifying horror. Let us know down in the comments below, of course, in the live chat, or of course at weekinhorror@gmail.com. Sarcasm has something interesting to say. It says, it missed the mark because you looked at it from a male perspective. My girlfriend and I had a lengthy discussion about this one, and it touched her deeply.
And that's fair.
My wife and I watched part of it together, and she thought it was shit. So, I mean, it's not just a gender issue. It's a personal thing. Like, his girlfriend probably had something, I would say, what not necessarily in common, but a common line of psychology with the writer-director. So that probably keyed off very well. But I think it's going to limit the film to such a narrow audience that I don't think it benefits. And overall, I'm never one for being like, this shouldn't have been made unless it's a witchcraft movie. Fuck that. But generally, like, I think you can get to a point where you narrow your audience so much and you dig into the niche so deep that, I mean, practically you've blown your budget on something that's not having the impact that it should have.
Well, we may be getting into Yasmin Areza territory, so I definitely want to know what everybody in the live chat thinks, and of course, if you're listening to this on the replay, what your thoughts are. Very, very kind of interesting and deep talk, and whether or not the film resonated with you. Love to hear reactions, because this was a divisive one, and what you took from it or what you didn't take from it. So definitely let us know. All right, Aaron, let's go.
Hang on, let's ask Jorg. What's a true horror for you?
Oh,
well, yeah, that's very.
For me.
I'm
not even sure. I don't think there's really too many horror-like things to even be concerned about. But I feel like that just kind of comes down with the territory of like person-to-person basis, like how much they identify with the idea of fear. And like I'm one of those weirdos who just kind of accepts everything as it is, even if like absolutely horrible things are happening. I'm just like, well, there's nothing I can do. I guess this is just it. So, yeah. And I know for a fact that not very many people can, look at things that way. So having aspects where, you could just approach many things and several things and not really be fazed by it, makes it very difficult for myself to, experience real horror. But I guess if there was some level of attachment of what I would consider like trippy horror, and this is like something that I've been like experiencing actively through different forms of media a lot lately, and experimenting with different levels of consciousness, is going into like these like patterns where I'll intentionally put me in places that are very fear-based, and I'll watch things on repeat to where like they becomes unbearably looped out. And I know most people don't like repetition. Most people don't like the idea of like things just becoming recursive and meaningless. And I find that there's like this beauty in like this like utter meaningless and like the aspects of saying, oh man, everything's like losing meaning. Because like in that weird sense, like it just finds like this new form of medium that just becomes kind of insane. And I think like a perfect avenue of that is like this weird resurgence of like this Dadaism like culture that is like appreciating now this thing called weirdcore and dreamcore, which is kind of like really out there, and it's incredibly experimental and very surreal and very quote unquote psychedelic as well. That I feel like amidst the Gen Z is really appreciated, but it hasn't really taken a foot on, I feel like, the overall consensus of this zeitgeist across all people of all ages at this point in time. But I think that's like possibly the closest thing that horror is in any case, just like this idea that everything's just monotony, like all of existence.
Let's see. Excellently put. Shinju says, true horror, looking into a mirror before I've had coffee.
I like how we go from this really, really deep explanation of the id and psychological and all the and into looking myself in the mirror in the morning before coffee. It's like two perfect bookends to that conversation.
Oh, Raven Darkstar, similar like that, looking in the mirror every morning.
Just circling back, just really briefly. Look, Lynch, that's why he does transcendental meditation, is he is basically trying to dip straight into the human subconsciousness and find ways to put it into art, including on film, so that
every night before he goes to sleep. Okay, don't fucking try and butter that shit up.
That by itself is worthwhile recreation. If you can make money off of it, you'd fucking do it too, Johnny.
Joshua Lee says, I'm going to say a true horror movie for me is one that makes me keenly aware of how powerless I am.
Yeah.
Very excellent. Leanne Richard says, true horror, parents outliving their children, slaughterhouses, and animal abuse, the handiwork of serial killers. Gosh, if Heckfire says anything that deals with the end, as in I exist as I did before birth. Intriguing. Very good stuff. Really look forward to seeing these in the comment section. Definitely let us know down in the comments. There's some deep content here, so I'd really love to hear what people think.
Everybody, I do have to apologize.
Anything to do with my kids.
The back half of right. That was really weird. You must have been a lag because it was a very unusual place for that to happen. Hey, everybody, I have to apologize. Anything to do with my kids. I was going to say I have to apologize for the back half of this show because it gets pretty stinky.
What?
The back half of the show. The next two films are coming.
What we're reviewing.
We'll let the audience decide that.
It's predetermined. No, I'm not letting them decide shit.
No, you already poisoned the well. No, Johnny. Johnny, you already poisoned the well. Yeah, though you already poisoned the well when you went, I'm going to be especially salty tonight. Now no one's going to believe you. Just as Gosh of Heckfire pointed out, is there anything you like? Just asking.
No, it's not.
All right, so Aaron, take us away. What is our next one?
Here we go. From December 9th, 2021, we have Death Valley. Roll that. Probably horrible trailer for us.
It's pretty bad. It's pretty
not
bad.
That bad.
It's bad.
A woman called for you last night.
Oh.
You distill shit down to a 30-second
my bad.
sample.
Hang on.
30-second sample.
There's the wrong
shit.
one.
Yep.
Here we go.
That's why you label them, JL.
The mission is simple. Enter the compound without alerting enemy militia, rescue the scientists with the research, and exit undetected.
I think I played this game.
All right, boys.
Yeah, me too.
And that
Keep your eyes peeled. We don't know what we're walking into.
Hey, Rach, something's not right.
Beckett, Marshall, we've been here less than 5 minutes and already the enemy knows our position.
Incoming!
Junior, I found her.
They're coming.
What is this thing?
You need to get me out of here.
Come on, pull yourself!
God, this thing wanted to be fucking Resident Evil meets Doom so bad.
It so wanted to be Doom. It absolutely did. Oh, man. Oh, man.
Dude, these are straight up off-brand special operatives. I've never seen those operators who were so dumb in my life.
there was some really poor operator decisions that were made there. It was like the minute the very I'll let you break it down, but that moment it was kind of like, let's tie him up and leave. It's like, fuck no, man, we'd be securing that motherfucker.
Yeah.
And we're done. No need to worry about this. Why do you think you're special operatives?
Yeah, you have pretty much
Kill some people, damn it.
They give you a get out of jail free card for that one, okay?
Yes, Denova 28 looks like Doom in the Woods. It absolutely was Doom in the Woods.
I'm sorry, but Home Dude looks
all right.
straight
So
up
it's
fucking
directed by Matthew Ninneber, written by Jennifer Lloyd and Matthew Ninneber, and starring Matthew Ninneber, Kristen Castor, Ethan Mitchell, and Jeremy Ninneber. Essentially, this is Resident Evil meets Doom in the Woods. A couple of special operatives are dispatched to rescue a scientist who's trapped in a bunker in an area that I can't even remember the name of it. It's terrible. It's like Bosnavania or something like that. But they're dispatched to rescue her. The area is surrounded by militia, and there are horrible monsters waiting inside. Technically, there's only one monster. They could only afford one suit.
one monster.
So, yeah, it's supposed to be a horror movie.
Okay, so obviously, being a creature feature, that this was a horror film, and I will give him this. At least their monsters looked decent. I thought the monsters were well done. It's probably where all of the budget went, was to make very
singular JL.
Well, that's true. We only ever see one at a time. We don't see a whole bunch. So you can reuse the monster over and over again. Of course, budgetary constraints. And we see that obviously all of the money went to the monster design, which I got no problem with. It's a creature feature. I get that. It's a little heavy-handed with it's kind of overhand. The thing that got me on this one was so this is kind of like a combination, both kind of biblical horror and government horror in that respect, in the sense that, it's an experimentation horror. So human beings find DNA and, hybridize it with human beings, create this monster, it turns loose, and it begins tearing everything apart. And of course, supposedly it's the DNA of like Nephilims, and that's what these monsters are. But obviously, movie scientists don't learn, because you figured they would have learned that from 1996's Species, that you don't hybridize human shit with alien shit ever. So apparently, they're still doing it. So yeah, this is elements of Doom, elements of Resident Evil, and of course elements of Species, all kind of rolled into one, without the cool stuff like
Natasha
awesome like zombie armies and Nemesis and a naked Natasha Henstridge.
Yep.
So.
This was difficult to watch for many reasons. Most of which involved that it was like the Wish version of Doom and Resident Evil. It wasn't. Yeah, sarcasm. They got in the can, so I got to give them credit for that. It's very difficult to get a film, especially a film like this, a creature feature, where it is going to be extremely dependent on special effects, and they got that right. Okay, they got the special effects right.
Mm-hmm.
It's just we probably could have done without the Wish version Michael Bay explosions. We could have done without those, right? You could have a couple, but there was just far too many of that shit. Is this supposed to be an action movie, or is this a horror film? And if it's going to be a creature feature horror film, why do I give a fuck about a bunch of explosions in the woods? Get into the monster. Get into the creature.
And probably some of the worst Russian accents I've ever heard.
Hey,
because those were not great. Those were not great. So, the two, they looked like angry Russians. They did, but they did not sound like angry Russians at all. So, but I get what they were trying to do on this one, but this is the problem. This is obviously, it was done. It was put out by Dread. This was on Shudder, and this is one of those by the books kind of creature feature deals that just pulls off of stuff that's already been done. So unfortunately, it's not just a matter of have we seen it before, but yeah, we've seen it dozens of times before. And the problem is, and you brought this up earlier when we were doing the breakdown, Johnny, is that they obviously rip it and they don't even try to hide it. That was problematic. It's like I was calling this thing when I started watching it 10 minutes in, I'm like, oh, this is like Doom. I think I played this expansion pack when I downloaded it for Army of Two. It's two guys go in to do this thing, and then they wind up, trying to do this mission and save the person. Person winds up being the big bad, and then, of course, there's monsters running around everywhere. And I was like, okay, whatever. And it was obviously Doom from the start with some elements of Resident Evil thrown in. And, of course, putting the camera in interesting places, like on the end of the gun, looking back at the person holding the gun. So we've seen that as like, oh, wow, someone else did that. So you did that too. There's nothing original about it.
There's nothing wrong with because like it's tough to be original, right? It's very difficult to be.
It's hard, yes, very hard.
But there's dealing with the challenges of unoriginality, and then there's just, well, we're gonna fucking shot for shot, frame for frame recreate the ending for Doom.
Well, that was that's when when it was the kicker for me, was the final fight between the big bad and the hero of the piece. Was they even do the knife through the hand sequence? Right. Where it's like, it was like, come on, guys. Really?
You're not even hiding it. You're
not even
you're like hitting us in the face with it. Like, ha, mother. Yeah, we know we're doing this shit. Fuck you if you care. We're doing it anyway. Like, come on.
Yeah. So
make it
Travis Brown says, this is why you do not fuck in the woods. Because it was hybrid. Yeah. Denova 28 says, precisely the plot of Doom. It was absolutely the plot of Doom. Raven Darkstar says, this is another version of Overlord. Yes, but Overlord at least had killer Nazis, which always makes for a good time, and characters that we cared about. Because we don't care about any of these people in this thing, except for I cared a little bit about the friend. At least he had depth. No one else had depth. You don't even know
the friend's name. That's how much you cared about
that guy. Such a screw up.
He was the worst operator in the world, and of course he's the classic, I'm the fun-loving guy because I wear my hat backwards, kind of dude. Is like, because I have long hair and I wear my hat backwards, so I'm the bad boy, dude. So.
The fuck up part aside, did he remind anyone else of Alex? I'm just saying.
A little bit, yeah. He was kind of like Alex. He was kind of like
that
Alex,
relaxed,
was
like fuck it, we're gonna do this sort of guy. But I think you can tell. By the way, it's also a direct ripoff of Resident Evil because they're descending into this bunker to save somebody, but then it's gonna release the end of the world. Yeah. But you can tell there's some struggles going on behind the scenes, or maybe some resource production that wasn't done very well. Because aside from a 10-minute segment at the very beginning, the first third of the movie is for combat. It is non-horror related shootout in the woods, and it's because the woods are cheap as a set, depending on where you're working at. You get some airsoft guns, a little CGI, and you start blowing each other away. But it shouldn't take that much of a horror movie. But also, once they get down in there, and the cliches aside, they try to take this biblical route with everything, and they don't tie it in very well. Like, the creature does not look anything like a Nephilim. They did not establish anything besides biblical quotes, backstories to why this would be considered a Nephilim. By the way, it's basically just a liquor from Resident Evil. One of the things that has the long tongue,
like a liquor without a tongue, right?
Yeah, and it's another very ham-handed mishmash.
But at least it was practical. At least it was a practical effect. I'll give it.
Like I said, I'll give them that. The special effects. They took their time crafting the special effect, which is cool. I always appreciate good practical special effects. Always.
Sarcasm says they got it in the can, right?
Yeah.
And then he says,
which can are we talking about? The film can or the...
says, but they got it in the wrong can. And Denova, they weren't even Michael Bay explosions. They weren't even Bay explosions. These were just like basic, basic kind of explosions. Yeah. Not even really impressive in that respect.
So look, okay, so we're talking about
the Bay package.
Right. We couldn't afford the 16 tons of C4 Bay package. I get it. But we're talking about the opening of the film, and I get what they were trying to do, be a little like, oh, it's misdirection, like an action film, like they did in Predator, like they did in fucking Aliens. But what they forgot in Predator, it worked because you had a great villain. There was actual things to be afraid of. In Aliens, it worked because you had fucking Bill Paxton. So this didn't work because you had none of those things.
I don't know if you're keeping score, but we just got our asses kicked, pal.
Game over, man.
Yeah.
What are we gonna do? What are we gonna do?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like they missed the mark on what they were trying to do so often throughout this whole movie. If you're gonna misdirect us, do it the right way. This was not done the right way. This was not. Again, I don't fucking care about these non-Russian Russians. Fucking kill them all. I don't care. About
They're all just fodder anyway.
Yeah, right. You know, so you look at again, going back to Predator, you look at Predator and all the deaths in there, they were not just fodder. You know, they actually took a time. Even what's his name? The first guy who gets killed in Predator. Come on, tell me out.
Hawkins.
Hawkins. Golly, I can't remember his name. Actually cared about Hawkins. He had some character development, right?
All he did was tell jokes.
Well, still, but that was good enough, right? That was good enough to get like, okay. Hawkins.
All he did, and it was the same joke. All he did was tell pussy jokes.
That's true.
But that's what endears him to us.
Exactly. But you know, he had.
No, sorry. He told pussy jokes and he ran comms. That's what Hawkins did.
That's what Hawkins do. But it was enough for us to be like, oh man, that kind of sucks. They got killed. Oh, it sucks. But all the characters there were developed, even a little bit. None of the characters. Yeah, right. None of the characters in this had any kind of development that anybody should ever give a shit about. It was terrible. It's like, yeah, I put a bullet in his head, whatever. Monster, eat his face off. Who gives a shit? Don't care.
Yeah,
this is definitely a cash grab.
This is definitely, I was took the words right out of my mouth. Definitely a cash grab, something really quick that you could produce on the cheap. Obviously, there was more budget spent on the wood scenes than there was in the bunker scenes. When it could have been
fucked up because that's where all the horror is supposed to happen.
Right. They could have literally taken everything they spent on all the wood stuff, on all the exterior stuff, gone into it and put that all into the bunker stuff. So at least we would have had an interesting and contained story. Monster design could have been a little bit better. Like I said, it takes everything away. Commander Darklight.
Yeah.
It takes everything, but that's the problem the biggest problem I have with this is that I'm watching it. I'm consistently reminded because there are other creature features I've seen which were really like Sputnik was well done. It's not. It's been done before. Sputnik was done. It's an Alien and Life and a number of other films, but at least Sputnik had a very intriguing way or a fairly original way of telling that same story. Extraterrestrial life brought here, and then some effect to that degree. Hell, it was even in Species 2, or when the alien hitches a ride on the astronaut. So in this, but Sputnik was intriguing in the way it did it. It told it in an original sense, so we feel like we got kind of a new movie. So we weren't constantly reminded of everything else while we're watching this. Because the whole time you're watching this film, you're thinking about, I could be watching Resident Evil, I could be watching Doom, because I have nothing better to do, or I could be watching Species, or watching whatever else that at least has some entertainment value and characters I give a shit about. This is the problem that I have, and I want to talk about this one because this is a major pet peeve of mine. I think, and while some people will disagree, I have always felt that cash grab films dilute the genre. They dilute any genre. I don't care what genre it is, whether it's family films or romance or comedy or action or horror, or especially horror. Cash grab films dilute the genre. They dilute any kind of credibility filmmakers have, because people can watch this and go, what is this? Mm-hmm. I mean, you took everyone else's ideas, you just rehashed them with less budget, and you didn't even try to hide that you were doing it. And that, I think, does more damage than it helps. Because it just goes to show it's all about dollars. We don't give a fuck what we're putting on your screen. Here you go. And it's like, well thanks, pal.
Let me grab Jorg on this one here, because this is something that we as filmmakers deal with a lot, right? So Jorg, when you see something like this that is an obvious cash grab, for me, I find it more of yes, it's a slap in the face, but it's a slap in the face like, well, if they can do a fucking cash grab, why can't we do something good? So I see it more of a motivation piece.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if I had this conversation with you yet, but I guess it's going on air now. The whole reason I became a filmmaker was because of how disappointed I was in filmmaking,
right?
And all these modern horror films that have been coming out. So I was like, you know what? I'm tired of seeing these movies. I'm going to make movies I want to make. And, that was 6 years ago, and now I'm here. But I still haven't made that movie that I want to make yet. But you know,
I mean, once you've made that movie, you're gonna have another one you're gonna want to make.
oh no,
so
for
fuck
sure.
it.
I mean, like that's just kind of the way of the world once you get into that world. But like whenever you see movies like these are like obvious cash grabs or tax write-offs or whatever you want to consider them.
Oh, that's even worse. Ugh.
Yeah, because like I know some producers who actually do use movies as tax write-offs or write-offs in general. So, you know, they're just like, oh yeah, let's just spend a whole bunch of money, forget about it, and then just move on. Why they don't do that for our movies is beyond me. It's upsetting.
Yeah.
Especially because like some of the
Please
things I've
use
worked
me.
on.
Please just use me. Use me as a tax write-off.
I'm right here. I'm ready. I'm willing. Just do it.
Spend your money on something that actually people.
I brought my own lubricant. Just do it.
Please.
Yeah.
I'm gonna slam this bar of soap in front of you really hard on purpose. But yeah, I mean, like, it's just kind of funny to just, you know, see that all these movies are being made and like all the heart goes out of the window and they go like, you know what, I think this idea would work. Just watch this video game or watch this little piece and we'll just, you know, shit it out in a time constraint of like a month with like, I don't know, $1 million. 2/3 of that goes to the producers and 1/3 goes to the actual production.
Yeah.
And you know, we get movies like this.
Well, the one use I could see for these is if they are part of the same financial entity, same studio generally, that is making good movies, for the fact that if the good movie doesn't do so financially well, you've got this other cash grab to help even things out, and they're still going to be putting them out because you've got bigger studios that tend to operate that way, where one movie, the profit it makes is covering several others that didn't do so well. So it's part of the same entity, but the sad thing is you tend to see like Asylum, where it's the same entity that doesn't have one good movie, and or you've got the guys that are out there struggling, won't make the shitty film and are trying to get the cash just to get it done. So sadly, within this genre, you just don't see that much of that.
That's why I see like Asylum is like professional trolls. You know, it's like that they're not intending to make it like that. That's essentially what it is. It's kind of like they're trolling the genre, and that's why we watch. That's why we watch, you know, that's why we get such a, like, we is kind of like the internet society kind of gets a kick out of watching people getting trolled or trolls doing it to other people. So we get a kick out of that. We find it entertaining. That's why kind of Asylum exists, because it feeds that beast. And it has a place in Asylum, as an Asylum production, not as something being put out by something like Shudder. And or if there are other services that are out there, or maybe this should have been on Screambox. I have no idea. But when it comes down to it, you have a name that's associated with really, really strong stuff, and then you go ahead and you start churning stuff out like this, and it just raises questions. And I think ultimately it does harm. Now, someone did bring up in the live chat that Tony Regime brought up, it does damage the genre, but when a good film comes out, it makes it feel all that much better. And I understand that, and I totally get that. It's like, finally we get a good one, and we're like, oh, that feels so good to see that movie. But like Bjorg was bringing up, it just reminds you of all the bullshit on the back end. And this may be the kind of elitist creator type mentality that we want to be artists and we want to create things, and I get that. But there needs to be a balance between the two. We need to be able to find the line between them, because just accepting is like, yep, we're just going to turn out movies. We're going to turn out this fucking movie, and you know, this thing that's just completely derivative, completely unoriginal, and does nothing, and will make no money, so we can write off the losses on a bigger picture that we invested in, just in case we don't make the money back on that one. We can write that shit off. That is a fucking waste of talent. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of all the energy and manpower and the thousands of hours that go into making films, just so that we can be like, you know, just to be fuck offs.
I will say this, as someone who works primarily below the line, I don't think it's a waste, because there are people who work below the line to get fucking food. They can, you know, pay their bills.
Segue into the industry.
It's true. It does create jobs. It creates jobs. It helps to maintain people's livelihood so they can be in the industry and hopefully use that to fill their resume and eventually use that to springboard to something solid that can be doing with it. Right. And I get it. You do the art film, then you do the safe film. Then you do the art film, then you do the safe film. I get that mentality. I just wish it was better because it can be better.
The safe films could be better. I do agree. But again, I use it as fodder for like I'm going to continue to work on my craft. That way, when I do get the film out, it's going to look better and be better than all this other drivel. Like when somebody comes up to Jorg and me and you and say, "Hey, here's the same 50,000 that we obviously put into this fucking piece of shit called Death Valley," we're like, "Oh fuck yeah, we could take that 50 grand and make something amazing."
Yeah. And then of course you do. Then of course you do the film because a friend says you owe him. So.
And then then it comes out like, all right, yeah, fucking
It's the same thing as everything with our species. Like, is it wrong to do? Not necessarily. Could we be doing better? Should we be doing better? Yeah, probably. And what the fuck did this have to do with Death Valley? All right.
Not a goddamn. It was not even in.
It was in a valley.
Yeah.
It was in a valley, and there was death in the valley, I guess?
The one rock thing that guy shimmied down during the first fight sequence does not constitute a valley. That's barely a hill.
They're just like, what the fuck are we going to name this thing? Well, that kind of looks like a valley. Ooh, Death Valley. That'll sell it. Get the fuck out of here.
Look up terms with death and then on the internet and go with the first one that's not trademarked.
Yeah.
Okay, so the question we have for viewers and listeners, what is your favorite government horror? Let us know at weekinhorror@gmail.com, drop in the comments or in the live chat. And my answer for this one is terrible, but it's pure nostalgia value as watchers. I was too young to realize that movie sucked, but every time I watch it, I'm like 12 again, man.
I really dig, as far as military horror goes, I really dig Red vs. Dead. I just like the concept of zombie Nazis and then shooting them without a care in the world. I just love the concept. So Red vs. Dead is one of my faves. Ghosts of War was really, really good. Andy Serkis was in that and played a psychopath, and it was really fantastic. But I really like Red vs. Dead.
I'm gonna go with Alien.
Oh, there you go. Well, Aliens? Wait, no, Aliens? Because Aliens are Colonial Marines.
I'm still going Alien. No, Alien.
There's a little government commentary in both of them.
Government corporations, or in that respect, corporations kind of run things like governments. I get it.
I was really just saying that to be contrary, but whatever.
Ooh, look at that. We actually hit the algorithm. Mods, if you wouldn't mind taking care of the sex bot in the chat. I appreciate
love in
that.
your city, heart. Find love in your city, semen. What the
Find love in U City. Find your love in U City.
It heard me say asylum and was like, they're talking about trash. Let's drop in.
All right. So we got one more, and we're going to wrap it up here real quick.
Yes, we are.
So, because this one, there's not much to say on this one. I apologize about this one, but it has a tie-in with reality. So, Johnny, and I will say this, there's no trailer for this one. So, because no trailer exists that I can find. So, we don't have to watch that. We just dive right into it and rip it apart and be done.
So we're talking about the wickedly awesome Whispers from a Shallow Grave from 2006. The most amazing film that you'll never see. Just don't watch it because you can't find it. If you do find it and you watch it, I warned you.
If you do want to watch it, it's currently in the trailers section of the Week in Horror Discord. So, because I couldn't find a trailer, so I just put the full movie. So there you go.
And nobody's going to care that you have torrented. No, they won't. They'll be like, no, please torrent this movie so somebody will fucking watch it. Written and directed by Ted Newsom, stars Trudy Jo Marie Keck. What a name. Gerald Broden, Gwen Brownson, and a whole bunch of other people. It's Tim Murphy's in it. John. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. Really. I don't even know what this movie. This movie's about this model who disappears.
We got Trudy Jo here. here.
Yeah, right.
Nobody cares.
This is a weird movie because it's loosely based on a true story, but a model goes missing, and then they think it's a photographer who fucking killed her and all that shit, and it's kind of dumb because like the ghost of the fucking model is telling the story, and it's just really fucking bad. This movie could have been 10 minutes long, and it would have been so much better than it is now because this movie just fucking drags on and on.
That's the problem, is it's not even bad. Like, we've talked about that before. If you jam it so far into the red line, the engine explodes, at least it's a show. but it is absolutely flat throughout. You could have Ben Stein reading a narrative of what happened, and it would be more interesting than this portrayal. And they dragged it out to 2 hours, not an hour and a half, not an hour like a Lifetime movie. 2 hours of my life down the toilet again.
Yeah.
Wait, was it again, or was it worse than Witchcraft, or? Come on, because at least Witchcraft had some entertaining elements.
It's hard to judge because, like, with Witchcraft, I mean, you're asking me how wide the dick was when I was more worried about how deep it went with Witchcraft, okay? There was just so much of it, JL. Just so much, and I wasn't expecting it when I first joined.
18? I thought it was
15. It was 18 Witchcraft films. Because 16, 17, 18 were all done kind of like back to back to back.
Oh, yeah, yeah. That's why they just kind of blurred in there. I mean,
by the time you hit 14, they're pretty much all the exact same.
The
And
same,
it's just, titties, bad CGI magic. That's pretty much all you got.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know what to say about Whispers from a Shallow Grave. I don't. What can we say other than don't watch it? I mean, I'm sorry. I know that there's people out there who made this movie.
The big thing
would be like, oh, I can't believe you said that. But no, this is really a huge waste of time.
It is, and the big thing of point of this one. Obviously, we've talked before on the show about films, either they're psychological horror films or films that recount or that are inspired by true events. And we say loosely inspired by an actual event. And this was inspired by the disappearance of a model and the photographer that was suspected of killing her, and the obsessive photographer that was suspected of killing her.
Yeah.
So, and then they tell the story in this really weird style. But the whole big point on this one is that number one, obviously, it's an absolutely terrible film. It was shot horribly. The sound was off. And nobody can act in this entire thing. I thought the girl who played it was so flat and just uneventful. It's like, what the absolute? At least your lead actress could have delivered lines correctly, but apparently not. And so it was like I thought I was watching like somebody just like ran out with a camera and was like, yeah, stand over there, I will shoot you real quick. Oh, we're gonna go. And then there was nothing. There was almost like there was no planning whatsoever. That's what it felt like. That there was no planning whatsoever in the making of this movie. They just kind of like went with what they felt. This is like movie by intuition with no budget whatsoever. And the big thing on this one was, and the reason I kind of wanted to dig in and get your guys' opinion, of course, get the live chat's opinion, was movies like this that take their inspiration from real events, from real horrific events. The obsessive murder, an obsessive individual murdering the target of his obsession. These are horrible things that happen in real life. Sometimes movies get made based on those events, or they're inspired by those events. The big thing on this one is like the story itself in real life did not get a lot of news service. It kind of fell through the cracks. It's just one of those terrible things that happens that people really just don't glam on because there's so many other terrible things going on in the world. But when you have something like this that gets put out, and you're trying to convey an individual's life, and then the tragic ending of that life due to circumstances beyond their control, really, really, really terrible, like the inhumanity of man kind of thing. I'm curious, does this do a disservice? Because as far as what many people, the only thing they'll know about this girl and what happened to her is from if they happen across this fucking atrocious film. And so when you do this and you have obviously no respect for your target, for your subject matter, no respect for the events that go around it, and you're actually using someone else's tragic story to push this weird fucking narrative that they did in this one. It was so ham-handed and obvious that just like totally pushed me out of it. Does that ultimately do a disservice? And should somebody have put the kibosh on this motherfucker? Or, I mean, obviously this is done in the service of trying to make money. But I think ultimately...
Yeah, talking about cash grabs.
Fuck, man.
This was egregiously terrible as a cash grab. Even as a cash grab.
Even there are Lifetime movies that are less of an obvious one than this one. Like you'll see stuff with like Tracy Gold or stuff with like Jodie Foster, like in The Accused. Those are based on actual events, but at least they have respect for their subject matter. They have respect and they go in and they try to get. It's both combination, kind of like it's a both documentary and kind of a kind of like artistic telling. There's none of that in this. It's just a complete,
it's bad.
like, oh, a girl got killed and her life was tragically ended. Let's use that. This is
the funny thing is, as piss poor as this movie is when it comes to utilizing that, right? We can take a look at other movies that have done what this movie did, but so much better. Right? We were talking about this in the breakdown, talking about how A Nightmare on Elm Street is loosely based on actual events. Right, so you had this kid. I think he was Peruvian. What he Brazilian? I can't remember.
I thought it was Indian.
I'm pretty sure he's Cambodian.
Fucking hell, we're all over the world.
I thought he was Thai.
Pan Pacific.
No, he's not white.
Well, anyway, so yeah, I mean, it's this kid,
Indo-Chinese.
Yeah. There were two stories that influenced that. Right, The Exorcist was loosely based on an actual exorcism of a young boy. There are so many different ways that you can take. Like, they could have taken this story of this model who was disappeared by a photographer and turned it into a good movie, a solid movie that's based on actual events.
Right.
This one here is just like, hey, based on actual events, cool. Let's do this weird art piece that's not even really art. It's like when you get people together who are videographers and all they do are like weddings, right? They're like, hey, we got a story and we want you to do a movie about it. But you guys primarily do live events and weddings, but can you do this movie? They're like, yeah, we totally can do it. And they don't balance the camera. They don't fucking, they don't worry about actual performance. And the story they tell is disjointed. And it's a terrible reflection of what actually happened. It's just, fuck this movie, okay? At the end of the day, fuck this movie.
That's what I think. It was like, and obviously I can't. There's no polishing of this film, and Rodent No Less Name. Good to see you, Rodent, and good to see you, Frayed Edges as well. Thanks so much for being here. Said, yeah, you can't polish diarrhea. You absolutely can't. This is bottom of the barrel shit, and I think it's exploitive in the absolutely wrong ways. Yes, there is an exploitation genre, but that's not what this is talking about. This is exploitive of real human tragedy. This is legitimately what I find. This is profiting on other people. This is profiting on the misery of others, and I don't like it. And I think it's one of the worst examples of how the art of cinema can be utilized, and I think should be tossed. But if people are not aware of it, then they can't avoid it.
Yeah, to really adequately judge it, I'd have to look into the truth behind it, see how accurate it was to actual events. Because there's a couple of ways you can go really offensive. With the stuff Johnny's talking about, they've taken it so far out that it's only a seed of what's there. Like Texas Chainsaw Massacre is the ultimate example of that. You're not seeing anything that will really happen except a vague basis, and a little bit in the advertising campaign. But if you directly exploit it for cash, if you'll change anything in it without deviating enough from the core just to make some money, but I think this one, it may do. I don't think it does a disservice. I don't think it does too much of a service either. But I think it was due to ineptitude. I don't think there was any malice here. I don't know that, like I said, without looking too deeply, how badly they twisted it. But the only upside is that, so the murder, because of the news cycle, it did get some attention on the news and the things that were associated with it. She'd been in Playboy and stuff. It was a little scandalous. It got more media attention than a lot of other crimes of the same nature would have gotten. So if it takes the place of, without skewing it too far, without doing too much horrible to the reality of it, if it draws more attention to what happened to the victim, I think it can serve a good. But like I said, I would have to see how much they deviated, because they tried this artistic approach, and it was at the beginning a kind of good idea with her testifying, and they bounced back and forth between his live version of what happened and her telling what actually happened. But then you've also got him finally coming forward, and they didn't use any creative technical devices. Like Hero's a great example. 3 versions of the truth done in 3 different colors. so you know exactly where you are and what exactly is like which reality, quote unquote, this is happening in. But they were technically inept. They were creatively inept, actually, more so. So they couldn't execute it properly. I don't think this was malicious or even like hyper exploitative, because they presented a not too outlandish series of events very poorly. If they condensed it, and then, I mean, your key failure is the fact that you've got this actress that does most of the talking in it, and she's just not good. She's
Sounds like
stilted
she's
in everything
reading
she
a
does.
cereal box. Okay,
She's terrible.
Yeah.
Here, I'm gonna read. Guarantee, if not completely satisfied with this alkaline battery product, call.
Yeah. They could have sacrificed, even though the budget was already low, they could have sacrificed another couple of elements to get a better actress and done way better with this movie. But they just like she
How
makes
about this?
Tracy
Do
Lord
something
look like an
interesting.
Emmy winner. Come on.
How about this? Do something with your fucking camera. At least do something. You know, just.
I know it's a small part, but we could get a better actor than this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh? Yor got it. That's okay. Yor got the reference. JL, you lose. -1 for you. He has no idea. JL has no idea what movie I quoted.
I didn't hear what you said.
You lie like a rug.
All right.
Anyway, no, that's all I have to say about this hunking shit. Please don't watch this movie. I've warned you. If you do, it's on you. If you don't, you're welcome. That's all I'm going to say. It's not. There are much better ways you can waste an hour and a half to 2 hours of your life. You can
2
watch,
hours, yeah.
Yeah, you could watch Nail Bog.
You can put your dick in a Parmesan grater and just spin it.
Wow. Jesus Christ. Fuck.
I'm not sure if I would rather do that.
I think I'll just watch the movie.
You haven't seen this movie. I would, if I could travel back in time. I've got a cheese grater upstairs. I'm just saying, my insurance pays for everything.
Good Lord. Well, now that we've got that trauma to deal with, what I want to know, let me ask the audience, what the best true events horror film that you've seen? Let us know in the side chat, comment section down below, or at weekinhorror@gmail.com. What do you got? What's your favorite?
Close Encounters of the Fourth Kind, even though it was like blatantly a fake movie, I really enjoyed how it was made at the time. I mean, I was like, 7 or something like that, maybe 8. I was like, oh shit, this is real. And then like at the end, I'm just like, oh, it was all fake.
It's true, yeah. It kind of got me as well, because I mean, come on, Mila really sells that right there in the opening, which is just like, I was like, oh damn, like they brought her on to do kind of like this, like, by the way, you need to know this, and she sold that shit. And I was like, fuck it, eh? And then it was, oh wait, no, it was all fake. What the fuck? Well, it's effectively based on the fact that people who live above the Arctic Circle, there are higher instances of disappearances of individuals. Well, yeah, you live in the middle of nowhere, and it's very dangerous in those woods, so people disappear. What the fuck? It doesn't mean, ooh, aliens.
It could mean, ooh, aliens.
Ooh, aliens.
Or it could mean, ooh, snow.
Oh, the owl, but the owl thing was crazy. That was a creepy fucking movie, man. There was some creepy shit in that film. I will give it that. Oh man! Oh, Genova 28, Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. Yes, based on the I would say the unreliable narrative of serial killer Henry Lee Lucas.
Yep,
absolutely. There's some good ones in there.
The Strangers. That one made my blood run freaking cold.
And it was interesting because The Strangers was based on when the same thing that thing happened to the director, that someone did that to him one night while he was home alone. Only he didn't open the door. He just heard them through the door, and then found out the next morning that several houses had been broken into that night because they were targeting homes that were unoccupied at the time. So, and he was like, if he'd let them in, he didn't know what could have happened. Thus, the movie itself.
Well, what got me on it.
Oh, go ahead.
Is I was living in the country, an hour outside of town, complete boonies, half mile to the next house. But there we had not too long before that a guy that was going door to door. This is the middle of nowhere, going door to door asking to use a phone. saying he needed to get picked up. He didn't say he had a broke down car or anything. It was very clearly obvious that he was trying to get in somebody's house. Evidently, he was dirty, creepy. Like, nobody knows how the hell he got out there. I slept with a shotgun under my couch and that night, and then like saw the strangers 2 weeks later, and I'm like, that shotgun's like staying with me at night till I move my ass back into the city.
That's my new teddy shotgun, my teddy bear. I was going to say Misery. Misery is my favorite.
All right. So definitely let us know down in the comments below, or of course at weekinhorror@gmail.com.
That's what I said.
Yeah, I'm just reiterating before we jump to the next one.
No, I'm talking about Angel Rivera's Nightmare on Elm Street.
Nightmare on Elm Street. Yeah, definitely.
And it was Cambodia, Laos, and Vietnam. So we were right. It was all over Asia.
Oh, the Hmong people.
Yeah.
Or Hmong.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. It is trivia time.
I don't know. I don't have a trivia fucking song. Alex.
You get one of those really annoying soundboards like the damn morning disc jockeys use, and it's just like when we get a shitty one, just a flushing noise, just fart
Or
or
that-
flush, and then move on.
That fucking idiot who does he's like super excited about stocks. He has all these buttons and shit he pushes. Like, dude,
Oh god, yeah.
that's fucking interesting, man.
Or no, you do it old school like we used to do, where you have like various instruments like around you or stuff that you do, like you be like,
yeah, right.
just like this. No.
Right, yeah.
All right,
Yeah, I
so
don't know how many
tonight's
toilet that way.
Tonight's trivia question is, of course, the winner of this will get a mystery item from the Week in Horror store, and that has been really, really popular lately because you never know what you can get. And the winner of this one, the first correct answer in the live chat, will get a mystery item from the Week in Horror store. So flex those Google fingers, get them ready, and here we go.
I feel like Jorg is going to know the answer to this one. He is not looking at a screen, by the way. He doesn't have a single screen to look at.
Nope.
So he's totally cold. If he answers it, he answers it. That's all I'm saying, people.
All right.
I'm not going to answer
Do
it.
we have the live chat up? Did one of y'all have it up?
I've got the live chat.
Okay. Tonight's Week in Horror trivia question is: Death Valley director Matthew Ninneber is best known for his portrayal of what universe-destroying monster? One more time. Death Valley director Matthew Ninneber is best known for his portrayal of what universe-destroying monster?
Jorg, vote twice if you know the answer.
Uh-oh. First one with the correct answer in the live chat gets a mystery item from the Week in Horror store. Come on, come on, come on. Who's got it? Who's got it? Who's got it?
Sarcasm,
Oh.
of course.
Yep. Sarcasm.
Oh, Sarcasm's got it?
Already. I'll go ahead and put it up for you there, JL. There you go.
Fantastic. Well, what the fuck? Okay, so apparently Gosh Effect Fire said Godzilla. No, it wasn't it. Sarcasm got it right with Psycho Gorman.
Yep.
Yes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Psycho Gorman. So
Fire.
So Psycho
Fire got a little personal there.
Yeah.
Psycho Gorman was a kind of grotesque adult version of kind of Power Rangers in the kind of effects and the fighting that goes on, and Matthew Ninneber was the guy in the suit who portrayed him. He didn't do the voice, but he did do the all of the action stuff because he is both an actor and a stuntman, and so he did all the Psycho Gorman stuff, and that's kind of like his big huge claim to fame. Now he's also directing and writing and producing and doing all that stuff. Tony Regime said Cthulhu. Nope, not it. Gosh Effect Fire said your mom. Not it. Raven Darkstar, I think, meant to say Galactus, and Josh Lee said, yep, Psycho Gorman, absolutely. So, congratulations, Sarcasm, I've got your name down. We're going to get that printed and out to you ASAP. So, look forward to your mystery gift from the Week in Horror store. Congratulations.
It's not a sticker.
Or it could be.
It's several stickers.
Damn it. It'll be all the stickers. All the stickers.
All right. And that will bring another episode of Week in Horror to a close. Thank you so much for joining us, and we truly hope you enjoyed the show. Join us next week when we look back at the creepy and atmospheric night things, the off-kilter slasher mental scars, the continuing toy terror of Puppet Master, the legacy, and the brutally disturbing folktale-inspired A Tale of Two Sisters. For more fun, be sure to follow us on all the socials for the Daily Splatter, your daily horror film recommendation. Remember, we're constantly being stalked by the cruelest of faceless slashers, the algorithm, and you can help us defeat it by dropping a comment, liking, subscribing, and smashing that notification bell like a true third act final girl. Joshua Olsen does all our amazing artwork for the show, and his designs are incredible. Hit his store up at www.badsamurai.store. A massive shout out to all our amazing patrons who continue to help us make Weekend Horror the incredible success it has become. And if you would like and are able to support our production, you can too by joining and enjoying the tasty benefits of one of our many Patreon tiers. But if Patreon is not your favorite stalking method, you can always support us directly through our PayPal. Links to everything, including our Discord community where you can hang out with us, are in the description below. And remember, the goal is global horror domination, and we can't do it without you, our amazing audience. So pretty please, with the hopes and dreams of indie horror lovers everywhere on top, go share the absolute fuck out of our little show. Thank you all for being the greatest audience a podcast could have. I'm Aaron.
That's you, Johnny.
No, that's some fat guy.
He never can be a team player. And I'm JL.
And that's yours.
Hi.
Such excitement. We'll see you next week. And as always, stay scared.
Ooh.
Bye-bye.
Elvira has big boobies.